Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for Monday, April the 1st. Can we have a roll call, please?
Marie Kuntz, absent. Chad Kiger.
Here.
Bruce Pauley.
Here.
Ron Edwards. Here. Lori Gross. Here.
Missing one, but everybody else is here. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from Monday, March 4th meeting? If there's no comments, entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from the March meeting.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Last month's meeting were approved. Anybody gonna speak tonight needs to see Kelly and sign in over there before I forget it. We're gonna start with docket number 2413, and then we will come back and pick up 24-5. PowerFlex with Michael Landler requesting a development standard variance approval for the installation of a 3.3 megawatt AC ground-mounted photovoltaic solar facility on property located to the west and the south of the existing U.S. cold storage facility. The variance request would allow an alternative landscape buffer planting standard than required by the UDO. The property is located at 415 South Mount Zion Road, and the property is zoned light industrial. Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Pauley, members of the board. I will walk you through this. The reason I wanted to take this item first before the conditional use item, which is 24-5, is that this variance, at least the outcome of this variance would inform that conditional use application. So wanted to make sure we got through this one first and then went back to that conditional use application. So as Mr. Pauley mentioned, this is a variance application related to buffer planting requirements, and this is in this case associated with the installation of a solar facility. This solar facility is specifically for U.S. cold storage's use. This is not a commercial installation. This would, for those of you familiar with U.S. cold storage, is a big, large freezer, uses a lot of electricity. So this would essentially be a solar facility to supplement their existing electric demand and needs there. And so, looking at the site with the applicant, and in fact, we'll go ahead and pull the screen up here. I'll walk through the site for you. So this is the existing U.S. cold storage facility. There actually, for some of those you may recall, there's going to be an expansion to the north of the building to accommodate Gorton's Seafood. Manufacturing facility will be attached to U.S. Cold, and that'll be located to the north here. They do have some future expansion capabilities to the building to the south in this area here, and then the remaining property in an L shape here is where the solar facilities would be located on this southern portion of the property. Here in Indiana, the sun is, even in the summertime, is still somewhat in the south sky. So our buffer standards requires a type D buffer on any public road frontage, which there is a road frontage on both the west and south sides of this installation area. And so when the applicant asked us about the installation of buffer here, our buffer requirements include both tree and shrub plantings, and in this case, large shade trees. Large shade trees, if you look at our planting schedules, are trees that will grow to 30 to 70 feet tall. And 70-foot tall trees have a habit of shading an area to its north, which when the sun is in the south sky. So we would end up installing a solar facility in this area and then planting trees and end up shading that area. So, kind of counterintuitive to do that. So what the applicant did is they did submit to us some alternative landscape plans that still meet the intent of the ordinance, but not necessarily the letter of the ordinance, because they're looking at different plantings that won't grow to that 70-foot height to make sure that they're still getting sun out of that south sky to that facility. So let me pull up. Give you an idea, this is a little bit zoomed in on the area where this will be located. This again shows the solar field, and then looking at the street frontages and the landscape plantings. The applicant actually has a presentation here they'll go through in a little bit that gives you a little bit better view of what the plantings proposed would look like. But they provided one landscape plan that had tree and shrub plantings, but the trees are more ornamental size. It'll be 20 to 30 feet tall rather than the 30 to 70. And that's what you see reflected here. And then one other alternate is more of a shrub plantings. So those would stay probably in the 15 to 20 feet tall or 10 to 20 feet tall, depending on the shrub height and how they're trimmed. So that's, again, two alternatives they've shown us. We reviewed those and actually like the variation that the tree and shrub plantings would provide with a little bit of additional height with those ornamental trees, knowing that they wouldn't affect the solar capabilities there, but would provide a little bit of additional height to that site. So I think I had one other. This just kind of gives it, actually north is to the right now, so you can kind of see where the solar facility would be located in relation to the existing building here, with frontage on Edwards Drive and Council Drive here. So it would be the buffer plantings on Edwards and Council. They're looking for some variation in the planting schedule to make sure that there is still some sun, particularly in the winter months when the sun is lower in the south sky. So with that, just a quick reminder, this is a variance request for the screening requirements, which is a type D buffer. That comes from UDO section 721H3. Requires a type D buffer with 8 trees and 15 shrubs every 100 lineal feet. They are providing or proposing the proper number of plantings. There's just a variation on the planting types. And again, they're requesting a variance to allow for a variation from the large shade trees with canopy heights typically range from 30 to 80 feet. There are 3 criteria that must be met in order to consider variance. The first one is the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. And the staff analysis of this item is that the request for alternate landscape buffer plantings poses no imminent threat to the public health. And the proposed alternatives will still provide adequate levels of screening along Edwards and Council Drive. Criteria number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The requested variance would not impact the use and value of the area. And I'll go back to my overall here, kind of give you an idea of where it's located in the business park. So this is smack right in the middle of the business park. You've got industrial buildings on all 4 sides of this site. And in a lot of cases, you've got truck courts that face towards the area where the solar would be included. So there are not any neighbors that would be adversely impacted by the installation of the solar with an alternative landscape plan. The alternate plan that we have found support for would include magnolia and star magnolia trees with a mature height of around 20 feet and Japanese holly shrubs that have a mature height of approximately 6 feet. The criteria number 3 is a strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties. In this case, we determined that the strict application will result in practical difficulties if they are required to plant large shade trees with a mature height of 30 to 80 feet. The tree plantings will end up shading portions of the proposed solar field from the sun, reducing the efficiency and production ability of the arrays to generate adequate power for the site. And really what you'd end up doing is you plant those 80-foot tall, or trees that would end up being 80 feet tall, and then you'd have to move the solar so far back from the trees as to reduce the effectiveness of the site because you've reduced the size of the solar field to the point where it probably wouldn't be viable anymore for this site because there is a restricted area they can use for that. So with that, after determining these 3 criteria have been met, City of Lebanon planning staff has recommended approval of the development standards variance request to permit relief from the solar electric screening requirements, subject to the following condition, and that would be that the applicant install the alternate buffer planting plan as submitted to include 75 star magnolia trees, 75 magnolia trees, and 285 Japanese holly shrubs. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this variance request.
Is this going to set on any type of mounding at all, the landscaping?
You mean around the, no, it is not. So it'll be a combination, again, they'll have some renderings here in a little bit, they'll show better. There'll be a combination of a fence that will go around the entire site that provides some screening and then supplemented with landscaping on the outside of the fence.
Does the applicant have anything to add? Don't fight over the microphone now.
Good evening. My name is Michael Landler. I'm with PowerFlex, the permitting associate. With me is Josh Connor. He's the project developer. And we have brought some renderings. And before we start the renderings, our request is not to eliminate any landscaping. I think Ben did a great job of explaining the reasoning why the trees will be an impact to the solar facility. But we're just looking to do an alternative and do a combination landscaping that will provide the screening, but also if you look in, we're also dealing with 2,000 linear feet, and the densities of the landscaping that's there currently doesn't come close to what the density that the code would ideally require us to put in. So that's why we're looking for some relief on that landscaping that will provide the screening, and we're also providing a green vinyl slats within the fence, and so you won't see anything beyond the fence. The landscaping is actually an addition to the block of the visual of using the fence. And the code does require 2 feet above our highest structure. Our highest structures are 4 feet, so the landscaping requirement by your code is for 6 feet, that's the code requirement is, 2 feet above your highest structure. So now I'll have Josh want to show the renderings. We're gonna show you some street renderings that would give you an idea of what it would look like. That is with the shrubs and the green vinyl fencing, and how you will not be seeing anything from the street. And also the neighbor, like what Ben said, the neighbors it's all industrial. There's no commercial development, no residential development. It's not a highly traffic, there's a lot of truck traffic, but it's not highly commercial vehicle traffic. And we're just asking, we just want to see if we can get some compromise on this, efficient and fair to serve the purpose of the screening without just putting a line of just heavily shrubs and trees that will go way above the height required by code, and it'll have shade coming down on those units to make them pretty much worthless and not viable.
And this rendering is coming from a slightly elevated view, but from the road you'd have the first buffer of the bushes followed by the fence with green slats, so it's fully opaque and cannot be seen through, and it also will be above the highest height of the solar facility.
The neighbor to the south.
I don't remember specifically which user it is.
What type
Is
of building?
it DA Lubricants?
What type of building is it?
It's another industrial building here, if they want to pull the screen back up. Yeah, you're right, that's a DA Lubricants. Actually, I got the.
Worry about the impact of any kind of glare on their building if they've got windows or.
No, in fact, that's the back of house. I'm not sure why it still wants to show their presentation. There it goes. So the DA Lubricants, it's actually the back of house. You can see where they've got their trailers back there. So that will be all their dock doors that would be on the north side of their building facing towards this. In fact, they're a decent ways off the road, and I think there's a drainage ditch in between them and Edwards Drive as well. So there's several hundred feet between even their truck area and what would be this property line.
And the tilt of the panels is 15 degrees upwards, and so if there is any glare, it's up.
This is a public meeting. I will open it to the public. If anybody cares to address the board, come on up. Not seeing anybody come forward, we will close the public end of the meeting. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, I would look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the development standard variance request, subject to the following condition: that the applicant install the alternate buffer planting plan as submitted to includes 75 star magnolia trees, 75 magnolia trees, and 285 Japanese holly shrubs.
Second.
Kelly?
Chad Kiger,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
Yes.
Ron Edwards. Lori Gross.
Yes.
Congratulations on that one. Now let's back up, and we'll take up the old business, which is continued from the March 4th meeting, and it's docket number 24-5, PowerFlex requesting a conditional use approval for the installation of the same 3.3 megawatt photovoltaic solar facility on the property located to the west and south of the existing cold storage facility. The property is located at 415 Mount Zion Road, and light industrial is the zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Pauly. We'll take a step back now and look at this project overall. This solar energy installations and the Unified Development Ordinance are a conditional use in the light industrial zoning classification. We did establish a series of standards related to solar installations like this a little over a year ago, and made them conditional uses, and then had some additional standards, including the buffer standards that we just reviewed. So in terms of the conditional use, I will walk through then the evaluation of the conditional use. And again, maybe we'll pull up the site again real quick just to remind everybody if they forgot from 5 minutes ago. So again, north is to the right here. The solar field installation is to the south of the building, located here, and connected back to the building with underground cable, wire, electrical facilities back to the facility here. And then the fencing will go entirely around the site, and then the landscaping that we just discussed. So in terms of the conditional uses, there are 6 criteria that must be met in order to consider a conditional use. The first is that the conditional use request is consistent with the vision, goals, and objectives of the comprehensive plan. The proposed use is not in conflict with the City of Lebanon comprehensive plan. In fact, the plan designates the subject site for industrial uses and encourages green infrastructure where appropriate, supporting a diverse mix of land uses. Criteria number 2, the proposal complies with the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. So I will walk through these in a little bit of detail in terms of what some of the requirements are as it relates to this facility. The first is setback requirements. Solar systems like this are required to maintain a front building setback along any public right-of-way and non-participating landowner property lines. The solar facilities are required to meet the 50-foot front yard setback along Edwards and Council Drives, and the 25-foot setback along the eastern property line. So you can see here, actually we're probably not going to see it very well, but there is a line on here that represents, I'll tell you what, I'll zoom in a little bit, you kind of see it better. That represents the front building setback line, and that is this line that you see represented here. So they do have the solar field such that it meets the 50-foot front building setback from the property line. And then all the fencing and landscaping can be located within that setback, as you see here. But the solar facilities themselves are all do meet that required setback. The second is the height. The solar energy systems shall not exceed 20 feet in height, and in this case, the proposed facilities have a maximum height of 18 feet. The third is screening, and again, we just talked about that a little bit, the buffer requirements, and we talked about the magnolia trees and the holly shrubs that would be planted, and that does meet the requirement when considering the variance that we just discussed. And there are ground cover requirements. The ground around and under solar panels and in buffer areas shall be planted with pollinator-friendly solar energy ground cover, and this is actually something that Purdue University studied and provided examples for this. And so the applicant has proposed a northeast native pollinator seed mix as required by ordinance, so they do meet that requirement as well. The next one is that any electrical lines or power lines running between banks of solar panels and to nearby buildings shall be buried underground, and the applicant is proposing to bury all lines and conduit throughout the site. I think you can see that. That's what this line is here, proposed 3-foot wide trench for AC conduit. So yeah, you can just see that they're gonna be running from those facilities up to the building and conduit you see here. And last is a decommissioning plan. And this obviously is, as we all well know, these solar panels have a life expectancy for them. We're required to have a plan for how to decommission those and properly dispose of them when they meet their their useful life. And so the plan that they've provided does meet that requirement to ensure that the facilities are properly removed. They provide a plan that estimates the system will have a useful life between 25 and 40 years. And the plan does include the process for safe removal of the equipment and anticipated budget, or a time and budget for that completion of the removal. So they do meet the requirement of that decommissioning plan. And so in summary then, the proposal does meet all of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance for these types of facilities. Criteria number 3, it is compatible with the character of the general vicinity. Subject site is located within the Lebanon Business Park and is surrounded by similar industrial uses. No residential, agricultural, or commercial properties are located directly adjacent to the subject site. The proposed solar facilities would be compatible with the surrounding uses. Criteria number 4 is it can be adequately served by essential public facilities and services such as street, police and fire, drainage, refuse disposal, water and sewers, and schools. This site is an existing industrial facility, so it does have all necessary public facilities and services where the subject site is located. Criteria number 5, it does not create circumstances detrimental to people, property, or general welfare by producing excessive traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, etc. And the staff has determined that the proposed solar facilities will not create circumstances detrimental to the industrial uses permitted within the LI zoning district. And evaluation criteria number 6, it allows orderly development of the surrounding property for uses permitted. This proposed use on the subject property will not have an impact on the orderly development of the surrounding properties for industrial uses. So in that case, we have determined that they meet all 6 evaluation criteria for conditional uses. And staff has recommended, in the case of this requested conditional use, for the allowance of a solar energy conservation system, we have recommended approval of this subject proposal. With that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions if there are any on this.
How much power these arrays will provide of the total needed?
The applicant may have an idea. I know it is a 3.3 megawatt facility, but I don't know what their total energy usage is. I'm sure it's more than that. I mean, it's a 400,000 square foot freezer. It uses a lot of electricity. So this is just supplementing the electricity they're going to have to use from Lebanon Utilities.
Who owns the solar panels?
That would be U.S. Cold, I believe, would own them.
Cold storage?
Yeah, U.S. Cold Storage will own them. And it's only providing power to their site.
They won't sell power?
Nope.
What about the event of hail damage? Will there be some cleanup that will?
I'll let the applicant, in terms of any sort of response to damage of the equipment, I'll let them provide a response for you to that. Questions for me?
No, I don't think so. Thank you. Applicant want to come up and answer a few of these questions?
In regards to the first question of the offset, the solar system, it's 3.3 megawatts, and so it'll produce around 4.3 million kilowatt hours throughout the year. That's a 61% offset of the current annual usage of the facility.
Explain, was there any other questions for him?
The hail,
Hail.
I asked about the hail damage, the cleanup or anything, and if these, are they toxic if they burst?
they're not. There's nothing that can be exposed from that.
There's no like cadmium or anything in there?
It's silicon.
Silicon?
The panels are rated for hail. I think it's 3 or 4 inch hail, and so that's fairly sizable hail, and so they're rated for most scenarios of hail that we see. In the event that they are broken, they're easily replaced and swapped out with no harmful environmental issues or to the people working on them.
What's the expected life of these panels?
Panels are rated for a 30-year lifetime, and that's based on the manufacturer's guidance, but we see them often get up to 40 years.
I have a question about the decommissioning. I know you have a plan but is there money involved that we have a plan written today, but tomorrow, if you file bankruptcy, is there a plan to take care of this?
Commissioning plan would be something that the system owner, U.S. Cold Storage, initiates at the time of the decommissioning.
Explain to me a little bit about the ground cover. Is it just a grass? Is that what you're?
It's a grass seed mix with is it some wildflowers?
With wildflowers, yeah.
So it's seeds, grass, and wildflower mix.
So there's no, everything's a weed, I guess, if you get right down to it. But what's the annual height, or what's the expected height of?
This is actually something that we work with them quite a bit with and sent them some of the Purdue guidelines. It's intended to be a low maintenance wildflower grass mix that grows up each year and dies down every year. It'll have things that will flower in early spring and through the summer. So it's intended to be essentially a no maintenance type of wildflower field, if you will. So kind of similar to what you see along a lot of interstates in some places now.
We're raising butterflies too then?
Absolutely. It's intended to provide some natural habitat where there isn't much now, since it's an area that's not going to be frequented terribly regularly by people. So it's somewhere we can provide a little bit of a natural habitat in here as part of the plan. And this is something, again, I mentioned Purdue has studied this a lot and recommends this in areas where you're going to have a large solar, and obviously this isn't a significantly sized solar array like some of the commercial ones are, but something where you can provide some natural habitat in there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Once again, being a public meeting, we will open this to the public if anybody cares to address the board. Okay, we'll close the public end of it. And no other questions, I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve docket 24-5 as written.
Second.
Chad Kiger,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
Yes,
Ron Edwards,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
motion carries. Congratulations and good luck with your endeavor. We've got one other item tonight. It's docket 2415. Belcanto, Lebanon requesting a development standard variance for an entry sign to be located at 901 Kelly Green Lane at the Hickory Cottages multifamily complex. Property is zoned planned unit development, UDO section 6.4.8.19 signage. Ben?
All right, let me get everything pulled up again here on this additional item. All right, this last item is a variance request for the Belcanto apartment complex that's currently under construction out just off of State Road 39 and Enterprise Drive, just south of the field house that is now up and operational. And in the new Unified Development Ordinance, for multifamily complexes, they're allowed to have entry signage on each side of the primary entry drives to the development. Each sign is permitted to be 32 square feet with a maximum height of 8 feet. And so we'll start here with the site. And of course, our aerial photography is embarrassingly old, so you can't see anything of what's happening out here yet. But this is the site. The field house is about right here, just to the north. This is where they're developing. Enterprise Drive actually extends across the north end of this property. And there is a roundabout at this northwest part of the site. And so let me pull up the development plan for the site, and then the area in question then is here right by the roundabout. So they have two primary entrances on either side of the roundabout where they would be allowed to have those 8-foot tall signs and 32 square foot signs on either sides of these primary entrances. What they're concerned about is as people are heading towards this site on the roundabout, they will not see the signs for either one of these entrances as they're approaching the site. So what the applicant would like to do in lieu of the signage on both sides of these entrances, a total of 4 signs, is put one sign in this landscape island area out here that will be more visible for people that are coming off of State Road 39 and heading towards the site. They will see the sign and their view shed as they're coming eastbound on Enterprise Drive, as opposed to the signs that be in either entrance. What they'd like to do then also is make the signs slightly taller and slightly larger than those 8-foot tall, 32 square foot signs, so it'll be more visible as you're out at State Road 39. Kind of going back to this, you can see there will be a site developed on this side of the road that's here. So as people are turning left off of and right off of 39, they'd like for a sign that's slightly larger so it'd be more visible for those people before they get to the roundabout, so they'll know where they're going as they're approaching the site. So the request then is for a variance to allow a sign that is 11 feet in height and 64 square feet total. So what they're essentially doing is taking the 4 signs that they would be permitted and reducing them down to 1 sign and making it slightly larger so it would be more visible for people approaching the site. They do not intend to put primary entry signs on either one of these entrances. In lieu of those, they would just like this one out here. So it does take a variance request because that's not something that's specifically permitted by the ordinance, even though it's actually less signage than what they typically would be allowed to have. So that would be the variance request before you tonight, is to allow that sign. This is a little bit difficult to see, so let me zoom in a little bit. So you can kind of see generally where they like to place it. So their clubhouse, it does sit here, and they like to put that monument sign, as I said, suggested in that landscape area where it would be visible for people heading eastbound off of State Road 39. And then here is a rendering of the proposed sign that you see here with the stone base. Hickory Cottage signage, again, it's 11 feet tall, and then the sign face is 64 square feet. Walking through then the criteria for approval of a variance. The first is that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Staff has determined that the request for the sign variances poses no imminent threat to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. The proposed sign will have an adequate setback from the public street and will not interfere with visibility entering or exiting the site. Criteria number 2 is the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Staff has determined the requested sign variance will not substantially affect the use and value of the adjacent area. The applicant has proposed an attractive sign design, and the consolidation of 4 signs to 1 location will have a positive visual impact in this area. The sign size and location will not diminish visibility or access to or from any adjoining property. In criteria number 3, the strict application of terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Staff has determined the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties. Because the site is not located directly on State Road 39 where a majority of traffic will access the site, there will be some visual limitations to signs that meet the UDO requirements. The applicant is willing to reduce the number of allowable signs from 4 to 1 and locate in an area with maximum visibility in exchange for the increase in size and height for the proposed sign. Staff recommendation, planning staff recommends approval of the development standards variance request to permit relief from the multifamily complex entry sign requirements subject to the following condition. And that would be that the applicant would be limited to the 1 proposed entry sign that is 11 feet in height and 64 square feet at the 2 primary entrances adjacent to the clubhouse on either side of the sign. No other complex entry signage will be permitted at these entrances. And I did want to go back to the development plan, and I'm referring specifically just to these 2 entrances here. There would be no other entry signages here. They do have an additional entrance to the south here where they would be permitted other signage, and then one to the east here where they permitted signage. We just want to make sure that this would be the only sign to be located in this area where these 2 entrances are located. And that finishes my staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
And is the sign illuminated?
I believe it's externally limited, yeah.
What is across the highway, the Lebanon Business Park sign, you know what the height of that is?
I don't. I'm trying to visualize what it looks like right now. I'm not sure
Go back to
exactly.
that very first picture, and it shows it there. I mean, it doesn't show the height, obviously, but
The aerial photography?
yes. Well, I don't know if, yeah, right there.
It's on the north side of the road, right?
Yeah, right, you're there.
Okay.
That's that sign right there that I was thinking about.
Okay. I wonder, I'm not connected to the internet. I say I could pull up Google Maps. Let me see if I can get internet access real quick. Yeah, that would be a development entry sign. There's pretty good size to that one, but I can't think of what it is. There it did go. I just had to delay for a second. It's a little hard to tell scale here, but you've got a pretty good sized telephone pole. That's got to be, I'm guessing that's got to be 10 feet tall. It's got to be at least 10 feet tall, I would say, because those telephone poles, I don't know, Lori used to work for Lebanon Utilities. How tall are those poles?
Okay, I don't have anything else. The applicant have anything to add?
Good evening, Joe Calderon, Barnes and Thornburg, 11 South Meridian, Indianapolis. Dan Herman with Belcanto is here to answer any questions. We actually do have a little booklet with, they flew
Thank you.
a drone on Thursday. We have some pretty decent aerial photos that kind of give you an idea. Oh, yeah. That's great. This is in tab 1 of your booklet. This kind of gives you an idea. Thanks, Ben. A little out of focus. So kind of the football-shaped landscaped area in front of the clubhouse is the area that we'd like to propose to the sign. You can see the 2 entries on either side of that and the roundabout coming in off of 39. Now, what the other photos might give you an idea is that in actuality, there will be development between the apartment complex and 39. There'll be commercial and other uses. So having a presence in that front area before you hit the clubhouse to be able to identify where the apartments are located is going to be important for proper identification and just directionally speaking, allowing drivers to make an intelligent decision about how to understand where they are. The field house, of course, is across the street. This is on the 3rd page of tab 1. One more view looking kind of straight down. And again, the football shape is the area where we'd like to put the sign. You can see that in the last page of tab 1, street view, looking back towards the clubhouse and leasing office right in this area, which will be landscaped, by the way. It's just not, this is still finishing up construction. You look at tab 2, you can see that this is part of a master plan with the apartments identified down at the bottom. You can see all of the other development between 39 and the apartments. And that's, again, why we believe that this sign will be important for the success of the project. You can see the field house across the way as well. We do have a larger or 11 by 17 version of the site plan, which Ben had and showed to you, and which identifies the location of the sign in relation to the project. You can see that the sign is part of the entry feature with the apartments kind of in back of that. And then finally in tab 4, you can see the sign itself. The acrylic or the vinyl portion of the sign is 8 by 8, which matches your width. It's just double the square footage of the 32 square feet that would otherwise be allowed if we had monument entry. So a lot of the sign height is because of the stone base, and that's what goes up to 11 feet from ground to the top of the sign. But the sign, the vinyl message itself is 8 by 8. So as Ben mentioned, rather than having two signs on either side of the entry drive, which would be more signage, more square footage total, we think this is much more appropriate. It allows us to landscape a little bit better. It also keeps any, what we call clear sight triangle, where you have entry drives coming off of streets. The way you want to position signs and other items is away from those corners where folks entering and exiting can see clearly to and from the driveway and the public street. So this avoids any clear sight issue, and we think provides for something that's more attractive, more effective, clearly for the apartments, and something that we think that the ordinance should allow in this particular instance, given the location of this kind of tucked off of the main traveled way, which is 39. We're happy to answer any questions. Dan, did you have anything to add, or just happy to answer questions?
My concern is, I guess I'm looking at tab 2. 11 foot is going to be higher than the eave of the clubhouse. I don't know that, I'm not against the sign. I think the sign, well, let me rephrase that. The sign looks nice, but I just feel that 11 feet is a touch too tall.
If I may, thank you for hearing us this evening. I understand your concern. If you remove yourself from out to 39 in the intersection of Enterprise and 39, our property slopes slightly to the east towards the property, and creating the great visual aspect from the road from a distance. The 11 feet compared to the eve as you're describing it, if you were there on par, I could understand that point. As you go from a distance away, you're going to see the building rise behind the sign because of the elevation being higher out at 39 and Enterprise, looking down towards our site. And so the architects, when they drew this and designed it, felt it was the appropriate massing to be in front of the clubhouse. And we, more than your concern, which we share, is important to us because we believe the clubhouse is a big statement, if you will. It's the wow effect. So when people come by and see it, they realize that's where home is, right? And that's where the beginning of their journey is, living in one of our complexes. And so we believe that not to block the clubhouse, but to create something out in front that is welcoming and part of it. And from a distance, we felt this was appropriate, both in terms of size as well as how it's being designed and landscaped.
There will be pretty significant separation between the sign and the clubhouse, and the clubhouse has quite a bit of width on that front elevation as well, so.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, I'll open it to the public if they care to say anything. We'll close the public end of the hearing. Any other questions for Ben or anybody? Look for a mo-
I'll make a motion to approve the development standard variance request with the following condition, that the applicant would be limited to the one proposed entry sign that is 11 feet in height and 64 square feet at the two primary entrances adjacent to the clubhouse on either side of the sign. No other complex entry sign would be permitted at these entrances.
Chad Kiger,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
No.
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay, do we have any other business for tonight? Our next board meeting would be Monday, May the 6th at 7 PM in this room. Look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.